OTB Sports Radio.
All right, just gone 12 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Glad you could join us for some unfolding, unconfirmed news from the world of rugby today. There are reports coming through of the 31-man Ireland squad that are going to take flight to Japan for Rugby World Cup in the next couple of weeks. These, as I said, they are coming from various sources. Started off with Ruaidhri O'Connor from the Irish Independent, and more sources are since beginning to trickle through with, as I said, unconfirmed as yet reports of a 31-man Ireland squad to go to Japan, and there are some major surprises in it, chiefly that Devin Toner or Kieran Marmion do not feature. That is the news coming from these unconfirmed reports of that 31-man squad. So I'll give you the squad in full. We're going to be joined shortly by Neil Tracy, who'll host of Land of the Rising Scrum, of course, who've been watching over the last few weeks, who'll pick us through everything that's happening on this and the ramifications of it. And Alan Quinlan as well is going to join us in just a couple of moments' time to give you some reaction to what, as said, is an unfolding story this afternoon, but totally unconfirmed as yet. It is coming through from various sources, but unconfirmed as yet from the IRFU. The plan, of course, was to release this to World Rugby today, as they would be expected to do via the official channels, and as Joe Schmidt had been saying over the last couple of days, that would be, he would obviously have been informing his players this morning of who was in and who was out, and then the plan after that was to release it to the public on Sunday next, some days after the official announcement. But as I said, unfolding reports today, but all unconfirmed. But that unconfirmed squad is in the back three. We've got Rob Kearney, Jordan Larmour makes the cut, Keith Earls, Jacob Stockdale and Andrew Conway as well in that back three. In the centres, Robbie Henshaw, Bundy Aki, Gary Ringrose and Will Addison is another player who makes the cut in the centre mix there. Jonathan Sexton, Joey Carberry is going to travel, and Jack Carty has beaten Ross Byrne to the punch. So it's Sexton, Carberry, Carty in that unconfirmed list of 10s. At 9 we've got Conor Murray, and Luke McGrath is the guy who makes up his backup option there at number 9. I guess Joey Carberry can step into that role as well if needs be, as long as he's fully fit. So it does mean that there's no room for Kieran Marmion. He's going to sit this one out. Up front in the props, we've got Cian Healy, David Kilcoyne, Tyke Furlong, Andrew Porter and John Ryan are the props to travel for Ireland. As speculated, at hooker we've got Rory Best, Niall Scannell and Sean Cronin. Not a huge debate about that position, of course. The second row, though, is really where the big debate is going to come. There is no room for Devin Toner. Favoured instead James Ryan, Ian Henderson, Jean Kleyn and Tyke Byrne making up the second row options. And across the back row then, a couple of little surprises there too. CJ Stander makes the cut, Peter O'Mahony, Josh van der Floor, Jack Conan and Rhys Ruddock is in that back row as well. So no room then for Jordi Murphy, who would have given a bit of versatility. But that, as I said, is the unconfirmed reports. It was coming from the Irish Independent this morning from Ruaidhri O'Connor, and we wanted to break into your regular programming this afternoon to bring you that news. We shall see if indeed it's a story that we certainly have the feelers out amongst various sources to see if we can get some confirmation of it. It'll remain to be seen if the IRFU are going to break with their plan to release the squad on Sunday and do that a little bit earlier. We'll only know that as the day unfolds. As I said, we are going to get some reaction to that squad if indeed it is to be the case, in the company of Neil Tracy shortly and Alan Quinlan as well. But before that, we did hear from Joe Schmidt after the game in Wales. He indicated about how tough this entire process was going to be. Here's his thoughts on that.
Look, we'll go back and have a look at it, and we'll be more informed about exactly what we did well and what we need to do better. For us it was great to be able to bank on our set piece. I think our set piece was much improved. We lost the line out, but our scrum was very strong. And our defence as well. I think we probably only had about a third of the ball in the first half, in the game really. So and territory-wise, we weren't dominant territory-wise either. And so in the first half, maybe we slipped off 4 or 5 tackles, but a lot of effective tackles, a lot of guys connecting up and doing a really good job. So from that perspective, there were some positives.
Joe, is it fair to say that given the depth that you've built, you're going to be leaving some quality players behind?
Yeah, I think it's a horrible couple of days. It's probably the worst couple of days that I've had in coaching. This time 4 years ago, and I know how hard these players are working. I know how good they are. and how hard they've worked for a number of years, because this is the pinnacle. This is what they wanted to go after. This is what we talked about last Christmas as being very much a sole focus of the year. And for those players who miss out, it's going to be a real body blow. And I'm incredibly conscious of that. And I sympathise with it, but you can only take 31, and that's the brutality of it, really.
Yeah, that was Joe Schmidt in the immediate aftermath of that 5-point win over Wales at the weekend. And I'm seeing reports coming through now that we had speculated just before that clip about when the IRFU might in fact, they had planned to release the squad on Sunday. Neil Tracy has just joined me in the studio, and I'm seeing from Murray Kinsler, the 42 was another who broke the story earlier, Neil, was that it seems as if they're going to release their 31-man World Cup squad imminently, which would suggest that the 31-man squad that's been leaked is actually going to be it.
Okay, so at some stage today we're probably going to see it.
Imminently, it seems. So I mean, that could be at any point in the next few minutes. I mean, if speculation is
or next week,
it could be next week. Who knows?
How imminent is imminent?
Imminently could be any time. But
no,
I mean, it might suggest that they've seen that everybody's on top of the squad now. That actually, it's by and large pretty watertight, fully watertight potentially, and they just need to reinsert themselves back into the story here.
Yeah, and to be honest, even before we even get into the squad, it did seem very surprising at the time that we were going to have this squad that had to be submitted today, and we were going to be waiting until next Sunday to find out about it. It seemed like a strange responsibility to be putting on players that weren't selected, because those calls were going to be made. Players were going to be told, look, I'm very sorry, hand on the shoulder.
Tough conversations.
Really tough conversations. And we were kind of talking about it on the show yesterday as well. We ended up kind of working in like the All-Ireland final, and just how tough it is on managers, telling someone you're not in the starting 15, you're not in the 26 on the programme, you're not getting a jersey on All-Ireland final day. And we kind of ended up coming onto the rugby as well, just the way it worked. But it did seem strange that all these disappointed players, it's an enormous weight that they would have been carrying around with them for a week, Oh,
incredible. And the reality is that actually listen to some of his quotes from the weekend. He was talking about the 31-man squad and the fact that actually he isn't going to be able to work with just 31 players over the next week before they head off to Japan, that he is going to need a couple of players
some of them
to
have
hang back.
to stay
so,
around.
I mean, that must be the ultimate torture for those players. Some of them will feature, is the thing. That obviously we saw Mike McCarthy was one of those that was called in the last World Cup when Paul O'Connell got injured. So there isn't any point in throwing out your toys out of the pram here, even if you're somebody like Devin Toner, who it seems has not made the cut.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing as well to note, that it's 31 players selected. If we get to whatever, mid-October, who knows, start of November, when Ireland finish up their World Cup campaign, depending on how they go, depending on where we go and how far it is, if only those 31 players have been involved in the World Cup and in that squad by the end of it, it would probably be a miracle with the way professional rugby is now.
No question.
It's just par for the course that you get injuries. You're probably going to get suspensions even as well. And although I'm not sure the suspensions covering calling up players, but in terms of injuries, you're almost certainly going to get some players are going to be called up. So, yeah, as you say, there's going to be guys hanging around in that camp for the next week or so.
Be hard to stay positive, I have to admit, but I mean, they got to do it because there might be an opportunity for them to get in. Let's get into some of it. The second row obviously is probably the biggest point of contention with no Devin Toner, so it seems like it was a straight shootout between himself and Jean Kleyn, who has made the cut. And the point being that obviously the last time we fielded what we assume to be pretty much first, albeit a couple of changes potentially, but a first 15 against England where things did not go our way, and one of the things was obviously set piece, and one of those big things was line out. Devin Toner is such a safe option in that regard. Isn't that probably the biggest surprise on this, that we obviously had struggled at set piece? He was literally a lock in that position in terms of locking that area down. Totally intended. And now he's no longer an option. That's, I guess, the greatest surprise. Yeah,
the one thing on the Devin Toner call that I am waiting to see, though, is before I fully make my mind up on it, I want to see, is he cited at any stage today? Because there was a tackle right on the goal line in that game against Wales the other day, and it was one of those standard, like a shoulder connected with, well, it looked anyway, that a shoulder connected with a head of one of the Welsh players who was kind of darting towards the line. And it was very similar to the incident that saw Scott Barrett red-carded during the Rugby Champion. Absolutely almost identical to it. Now, it was missed on the field on Saturday, but the sighting window
was picked up at the time.
Yeah, Barrett's was picked up at the time, but the sighting window is 48 hours from the incident. So I mean, we're talking some stage 3-4 o'clock this afternoon is probably when that shuts off. So if he isn't cited by then, and he's a free man to play, then I would think I would be very, I would find it a very, very surprising call. If he is to be cited, who knows? Maybe the Irish management may have got wind that look, he probably is going to be cited at some stage in the next day or so.
It's a bizarre one, isn't it? 'Cause
I think 6 weeks reduced to 3. It could be something they're kind of weighing that up.
I do wonder if this is the case that he hasn't made the squad, and by the way, Ruaidhri O'Connor now reporting that imminently means in the next hour, so we'll be hear that before
we
1
just
o'clock.
stay on
We'll keep going. We'll keep it lit. So if it is the case that he's not in, I would find it, if I'm Schmidt and I'm planning with him, if I'm thinking he's a firm part of my plans, I'm going to see that out, right? Because I'm assuming he's got some opportunity to name his squad, include Toner. Toner gets cited. I presume he can go back to World Rugby at that point and go, right, he's out, and I'm bringing somebody else in. Like if they could do that with McCarthy at the last World Cup, I don't know the technicalities of it, but I'm assuming that if he was going to plan with Toner,
I'm not certain on suspension. I'm not certain on suspensions. I'll definitely say that. I was trying to look it up before we came in here, and I was scrolling down through a lengthy book of laws and sub-laws and clauses and all this stuff. I couldn't find anything specific. So, I'd be interested to see what the reasoning is behind it.
Okay.
If it's a straight up, just a straight up selection call, a call on form, what he thinks is the best second rows to bring, then you're into a different discussion entirely, Yeah,
okay. Well, we've Alan Quinlan on the line. Afternoon to you, Quinny.
Afternoon, lads. How are you?
Good. So we're hearing now in the next hour that the RFU are going to confirm their squad for Rugby World Cup, which is a full 6 days, obviously ahead of schedule. They hadn't planned to do it, having had to submit the official squad today. They were going to wait until next Sunday to do it. Obviously, there are plenty of sources now, unfounded as yet, naming a 31-man squad to travel to Japan, and the big surprise, Quinny, that Devin Toner doesn't feature.
Yeah, it's a huge call, and it looks like the RFU are going to confirm the squad in the next hour or so, 6 days ahead of schedule. I think I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. I knew that Joe had to submit the squad by this morning. I didn't realise that he was going to tell the players. I thought he was going to hold off, because it would have been impossible to keep it quiet if the players knew. It was always going to get out, and it looks like it's got out this morning. And that is the one that we're still speculating until we know 100%. But because it's out there now, and that the RFU have made the decision to officially announce it, it looks like it's probably going to be an accurate squad that's been put online. And Devin Toner is the one that's the big absentee there, and that's probably the biggest surprise and the biggest talking point. Yeah. I'm shocked and surprised by it, because given what happened with the line out in England and the malfunction there, it's a big call. It's one that obviously the coaches have made based on not just line out ability, overall play and impact around the field. And we have seen Henderson and James Ryan perform well for Ireland the last couple of years, and deliver pretty high standard in the set piece. And there's obviously a belief that, and a confidence that those guys can do it again when needs be.
Like the surprising element of it being obviously that he's swapping out a guy with 67 caps for his country has been an important part of that team for the last number of years. Swapping him out for a guy that's got no international experience worth talking about, no exposure at that level at all, straight into a Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, that's a shock. I think Jean Kleyn is the one that people will probably debate over, and he's him being born in South Africa, and he's become Irish qualified only this summer, and he's going to be on the plane. So there'll be debates about that. Obviously, not just Joe, but Simon Easterby, Andy Farrell, they've seen enough in the pre-season that would suggest that he can make an impact and he can add value to the squad, and maybe more so than Devin, particularly around ball carrying, scrummaging, and just physical presence. It's a hard one to digest this quickly, to be honest. It is a big call. There was certainly, I said after the English game that we needed some big calls. I probably didn't see this one coming. Yeah. I thought Jean Kleyn had played himself out of contention after Twickenham. But look, ultimately, the whole forward pack didn't perform there. Most of the team didn't perform. So they've obviously seen enough of him in training. and I believe he can make that impact and that he offers. I think the problem with for Devin, he's a fantastic player and he's delivered so well for Ireland over a long period. Is he a starter? If he's not a starter, is he an impact player? I think your starters are Ian Henderson and James Ryan, and when they're on song, they're up in that best in the world scenario. They're certainly capable of causing lots of problems. We've probably going back to 2018, we've seen how devastating they can be as a pair, the impact they make around the field, the energy, the ball carrying ability, and so if Devin doesn't start, that's the conundrum. Is he someone you bring off the bench? He's someone you bring off the bench if the lineout's in big trouble, for sure. But there's probably more elements to that, and that's probably what the decision is based on. Do you put Tadhg and Kleyn on the bench, or do you put Rhys Ruddock and Tadhg on the bench? Or, they're the kind of conundrums. But as I said, they've obviously seen enough of Jean Kleyn over the summer to suggest that he can make an impact. And unfortunately for Devin Toner, he's the one that's going to lose out.
Quinny, specifically on the line-out, we're talking like Devin Toner has always been such a big player for Ireland in that area, calling everything. He's kind of patrolling everything in the line-out. Who's going to be taking that on now in the World Cup, because he obviously missed a large part of the Six Nations and things didn't really go too well in the line-out for those remaining games when he wasn't there?
Well, I think Ian Henderson will continue to call the line-outs. They obviously need more than Ian Henderson. If something happens to him, well, then it's James Ryan that's going to run the line-out, or vice versa, or maybe James Ryan will run the line-out at the World Cup. If you get an injury to one of those guys, then you're bringing in Jean Kleyn or you're bringing in Tadhg in the second row. And my worry is there's a little bit of inexperience. They don't have a lot of miles in the clock of running a line-out. It takes a little bit of time. It's more than just, in saying that, it's more than just being tall and being able to lift. It's about reading the line-out, knowing where to call it, when to, keep it simple at the front. And we've seen the last, definitely in that English game and a couple of times when we played in the Six Nations, a little bit of complicated calls and too much movement. So it's going to be down to Henderson and Ryan, and I'm sure those points were discussed in the selection meetings, and there's a confidence and belief that they can do that. And they've got to do it now. Ultimately, that is the case, that they've got to do it. And if it's extra work required, I wrote a piece the weekend on the Indo about the line-out and, the battle and with Simon Easterby at times and the way he developed as a great line-out player, not just someone who's been lifted, but someone who could read a line-out. So there's certainly going to be an onus on him to keep the pressure on the guys who are selected, and that they have an ability, and that maybe Peter O'Mahony is an ability to call line-outs as well. It's such an important facet of the game, but certainly Devin Toner coming out of there, it just creates that little bit of uncertainty that if the pressure is on, he is your go-to man. He's so tall. Even if somebody man marks him, if you put the ball high enough, he has an ability to win it.
So look, the fallout of this one's going to run and run. We've plenty of comments coming in, lots of people joining us on YouTube and Periscope as well, and we have obviously interrupted our regular programming on OTB Sports Radio as well, so delighted to have you along with us on this Monday afternoon for this, as we've been mentioning, unfolding story, all unconfirmed as yet, but it seems like the RFE are going to confirm the 31-man squad 6 days ahead of time, and they're going to do that, it would seem, before 1 o'clock today, so we'll keep a check on that. Quinny, I know you've only got a couple of minutes to stay with us. Obviously the absence of Kieran Marmion is one of the other big talking points, that the 9 positions have gone to Conor Murray and Luke McGrath here. Are you somewhat surprised by that?
A little bit, but I'm not surprised. There's very little between the scrum halves who are backing up Conor Murray. I think similar scenario with Johnny Sexton, the way that Carberry has closed that gap. Luke McGrath has been, he brought so much energy, and I thought he was one of the guys who came on against England and Twickenham and played really well. And, he had a really good season for Leinster. He obviously didn't get, he would have been really disappointed not going to Australia the year before on a tour. So again, it's a tight call. Marmion probably has that little bit more experience. But then Luke McGrath can offer that brilliant pace and zip and energy when he comes off the bench or when he starts. So it's a little bit surprising and it's a hard call. But I do agree with Joe when he said the squads should be one or two more players, and then you can take a little bit more depth in positions like hooker, scrum half, fly half.
Yeah.
But it's not to be, so it's disappointing for him as well.
One last one before we let you off. So there's no Ross Byrne, no Dave Kearney, no Chris Farrell. It's Jordan Larmour, Will Addison and Andrew Conway are the three who get those spots. And we've one question in here from Rob, wondering about that Larmour selection with Chris Farrell staying at home. He's somewhat surprised about that. Your reaction to it?
Yeah, Chris probably didn't do enough on Saturday. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's a fantastic player, and I personally would have brought him and maybe sacrificed one of the back three. I think Andrew Conway probably upset the scenario a little bit there by his performance. He's a wonderful player. He's similar to Larmour, though, isn't he? He's full of energy and full of pace and can do something brilliant out of nothing. But they've gone with that excitement, and maybe the centre scenario is just overloaded a little bit, and that's why Chris has paid the price, because of Aki, Henshaw and Ringrose. They're probably the three mainstays who've been there for a couple of years and delivered for Ireland. So very unfortunate. There's not a lot between it, and I think Chris probably needed a big performance on Saturday, and just didn't get enough of ball, and it's unfortunate for him. But in saying this, with all these selections, Adrian, a lot can change very quickly. You know, someone, particularly if someone in the backs goes down, you know, someone like Chris Farrell could be brought straight in. You know, so they've got to stay dialed in, if you like, and a lot can change. But there's a few tough calls. Jordi Murphy's a tough call in the back row as well. He didn't really get a huge opportunity, and I know he played against Italy in the first game, but again, he was someone that probably needed to come on Saturday and make a big impact, and probably just, you know, the wrong time. Wales kind of turned things around and were really throwing caution to the wind, and it's difficult when you're kind of so far ahead in a match like that to keep it going, and they were always going to come back and really throw everything at them. And some of the people like Chris Farrell, Jordi Murphy, just didn't get enough of ball and get an opportunity to make that impact. All
right, Quinny, thanks, Billy, for taking the call.
Pleasure.
Chat to Alan Quinlan on the line there with the reaction to what so far is unfolding story, but unconfirmed as yet from the RFU. They do tell us now that they will release the squad before 1 o'clock, it seems, today, so we'll get you full confirmed of that. Tom Malone has joined us in the studio. How are you, Tom?
Yeah, good, Adrian, yeah.
Just to give people who are just coming in, and delighted to have you along with us, whether you're watching us on Periscope or YouTube, offtheball.com, or listening on OTB Sports Radio, delighted to have you along with us. Just give you a bit of a rundown again on where we're at in terms of the squad. The big news you've been hearing from Alan Quinlan: no Devin Toner, no Kieran Marmion in the squad that's been announced. Jordi Murphy, another player to miss out, as is the case for Dave Kearney, Ross Byrne, Chris Farrell, all of those players missing out. But it seems like the players so far, unconfirmed, seems like the players who are travelling to Japan, the back three, Rob Kearney, we've got Jordan Larmour, Keith Earls, Jacob Stockdale and Andrew Conway all making the cut according to these leaked reports. In the centre it's Robbie Henshaw, Bundy Aki, Gary Ringrose and Will Addison. At 10, Johnny Sexton, Joey Carberry and Jack Carty, the player to be included there for the other 10 berth. Scrum halves, Conor Murray and Luke McGrath, as we've mentioned. The props, Cian Healy, Dave Kilcoyne, Tyke Furlong, Andrew Porter and John Ryan. While at the hooker position, it's Rory Best, Niall Scannell and Sean Cronin. Second row is maybe the most contentious point of this selection, as mentioned, unconfirmed selection. James Ryan, Ian Henderson, Jean Kleyn and Tyke Byrne. While in the back row, CJ Stander, Peter Manny, Josh van der Floer, Jack Conan and Rhys Ruddock. So that's where we're at. We'll get plenty of reaction to this over the course of the day. Back row, Neil, your thoughts on that? I know, Quinny, you just kind of touched on Jordi Murphy there. He probably can feel a bit hard done by, given the options that he can cover.
Yeah, I think though once I think it was a couple of weeks ago, Joe Schmidt indicated he was going to be looking at a 17-14 split between forwards and backs. I think up until then, some people might have thought he might have been going 18-13. As soon as 17-13 was mentioned in my head, all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, there's a couple more people that are all of a sudden a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be, like you're probably thinking in the back row, is where they're going to drop a number there. And from that point then, the versatility of someone like Tadhg Beirne comes into play because he's playing back row and second row. And then on top of that as well, like at a push, Rhys Ruddock can move into the second row if needed as well. So you're talking versatility. I know now Jordi Murphy can play right across the back row as well, so that would have stood to him. But like ultimately it is just a numbers game. You're looking at the guys that are selected. Jack Honan, CJ Stander, who else have we got there? Van der Fleer, Peter O'Mahony. Was there another one there on the list that I'm missing potentially? And Rhys Ruddock as well, sorry. So it's such a tight call. I think just about I'd be going with what's there.
Do you think the injury to Carbery has affected that 5 halfbacks makeup as well? Do you think if we had a fully fit Carbery alongside a fully fit Sexton, you're going with a different 5-2 split in the halfbacks, or is it always going to be the 3 10s and 2 9s?
Yeah, that's a good question as well.
Because Kiwis have gone with 2 10s, 3 9s. Australia and England have gone with 2 9s.
Yeah, I think with the New Zealand selection though, they just probably didn't really have the quality. Like there wasn't a really viable option of a third out half there.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
that's true.
you know, I think they would have been going that way initially. If Damien McKenzie hadn't fallen to an injury, he would have been a back 3 selection who could easily have gone in at 10 and has done in various times in Super Rugby for the Chiefs. But for Ireland, I don't know. I think I probably just about would have been thinking 3 out halves. Yeah. Just because of the importance that someone that Sexton has.
Do you think there's anyone lucky in this? Is Larmour a little lucky? I mean, what's Chris? Well,
Chris the lucky one you'd say probably is Jean Kleyn to get in ahead of Devin Toner. But aside from that, obviously we mentioned him. The people being mentioned, I suppose, Luke McGrath. I've always really liked Luke McGrath.
Yeah, I thought he was the obvious second choice.
He's a really good classic scrum half. He's got a really good pass on him as well. I know Kieran Marmion is lightning quick and everything. I've always just really liked Luke McGrath as a player.
There'd been some Schmidt loyalty towards Marmion was the big thing that we'd seen over the years, and he started some massive games. He started an England win, he started a New Zealand win. These are massive things to have in the bank over the last year.
And as well, he's come on playing on the wing in important wins as well. He's basically done a job. If Schmidt has said, "Will you go in and play loosehead prop there for me?"
Like a very
he probably would have done it as well.
Right? That's
so I'd say he's probably feeling quite sore now today. I'd say Jack Carty's selection up until probably last Saturday, I was leaning towards the side of Ross Byrne, but I think the performance Carty put in Cardiff on Saturday, straight away you just had to go, all right, look, he is. He was given a chance. He was given one last chance to get his place in the World Cup squad, and he seriously took it.
And for factors that might have been outside of his control, Ross Byrne hadn't done that the previous week.
Maybe Byrne was in against a tougher opposition in a tougher game. That England team were really on sound.
I mean, Byrne was getting dreadful ball all day against England. England had us stopped at source, so there's absolutely nothing Byrne could do.
I think for that one, it's basically just Jack Carty was given an opportunity, and he just took it with both hands. Some of the, a lovely little chip over the top. He was the one that started that move for Jacob Stockdale's first throw with the little mini break and offload to Andrew Conway. The other ones then, Will Addison. He hasn't played a lot of rugby in the last few months at all. He missed quite a lot of last season in around April, May. We didn't even think he'd be getting a sniff at a World Cup because he wasn't even listed in the original squad, because I think he was expected to be out up until around August after having surgery, and came back in. I was really, really impressed with him the other day though. I just think he has this he's just got this fantastic running style, almost this real upright style, and draws in players around him. And I think he's a really good playmaker, can cover in the centre and fullback as well. And Andrew Conway absolutely shot the lights out when he was given the chance over the last couple of weeks as well.
He's been utterly consistent over the last 2-3 years as well. He's been one of Ireland's best 3-back players for the provinces too.
Couple of comments coming in, because we're going to catch up on another Ireland second row legend in just a few minutes' time, but a few comments coming in here on the back of this squad. We're at pains to say, obviously, this is unconfirmed as yet. It's just a squad that's been leaked. It's from a couple of different sources. Ruaidhri O'Connor from the Irish Independent was the first off the press, I believe, a little bit earlier today, but as I said, the RFU have yet to confirm that squad. It was due to happen on Sunday next, but they've brought all that forward, and it's going to happen very, very shortly indeed. In fact, potentially in the next half hour. Kieran O'Connor has been in touch to say best 10 years of great service, really tells the story of the reason for not taking him. He says he's a bit spent, or is it his leadership that's keeping him in? I mean, I don't think the conversation about Rory Best being omitted was ever an actual conversation.
There's not really enough depth at hooker, is there, to consider dropping
I
him
think
out
if you were
three?
leaving Rory Best out, you would have been leaving him out for the sake of leaving him out.
Yeah, it would have been a bad call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's your leader, and he's with nobody else putting their hand up for to come in instead.
It was interesting, just on the second row selection, it was interesting how much time they spent deflecting from Rory Best after the England performance as well, to ensure that there are other aspects of the line.
I think if Rob Herring had been really putting his hand up and really putting in some savage performances over the last couple of weeks, you'd be raising that question. But I think if you were to drop Rory Best, you would have been doing it literally just to punish him.
Honestly, the guys who've been cut should all be shipped out to a resort with good sports facilities in a neighbouring country. We will need them. 31 is not enough.
Who was that in the Lions who was just shipped in from nearby?
A lot of Welsh players.
Yeah. And the
What are they called?
as well.
Welsh
They
players.
sullied the shirt.
Oh, they get I can't
Holiday
remember
3 or whatever they were. What else we got here? Ross Cal says would have brought Jordi Murphy over CJ, questioning CJ's form there in a few different ways. There's Ross Cal.
Yeah, CJ probably is out of form, and I think a lot of people might be thinking that Jack Conan is the man to take the number 8 shirt for the World Cup. You're probably talking credit in the bank with CJ Stander a little bit. Now, I know most of us would have thought that Devin Toner had credit in the bank as well, but I think CJ is just about held on, I think. The
concern for me is that the players whose stock we have rising are the players who aren't playing. It's like, once this guy gets back and plays, he's going to do a serious job. A few will go on holidays in Japan, says David Hickey here, and if I were in that space, that's exactly where I'd be.
They're going to be playing Pro 14 with their clubs.
Well, that's Kieran Behan wonders, do unselected, it sounds like something from Game of Thrones, do the unselected have to go back to their clubs?
Do they have to?
Yeah,
they will be, yeah.
Malcolm O'Kelly, good afternoon to you.
Adrian, how are you?
I'm all right. We're thanks for taking the call. We're picking through what we're calling unfolding squad here. It's been leaked a little bit earlier today, but it pains obviously to say that it's unconfirmed as yet. It seems like that's going to happen in the next little while. And the news, Malcolm, that it looks as if Devin Toner isn't going to make the cut.
Yeah, that's I say shocking news. Obviously, I'd be very biased. I'd be very pro-Dev, but I know the value he certainly brings in terms of set piece and specifically line out and kick off and stuff like that. He's a great pair of hands, a very safe pair of hands, and has been for many years for Ireland.
Yeah, and because we know that Schmidt obviously can be a very loyal head coach in so many ways, and like he's a guy with close to 70 caps versus a guy who is totally untested at this level in Jean Kleyn.
Yeah. I would expect it's for someone like Jean Kleyn. He does bring a certain amount of physicality. His probably they would be looking at maybe his stats in terms of hitting rucks and winning. He's not going to be the lad who's going to be winning the ball in the middle line out. Yeah, he's going to be the lad at the front of the line out as your second option. What Jean Kleyn brings is a bit more iron maybe in the pack in terms of really digging out and grafting out the games. But as we saw against England, it's not much. You can have all the grafters you want, but you haven't got a fellow win the ball in the middle line out here, you can be in terrible trouble.
Yeah, I know you had, because you told the story of your own departure from the Irish scene with Declan Kidney taking you aside. This is the difference with the Toner one is that, we're all astonished about it. In one hand, sort of assuming that maybe the coaching ticket had some kind of a plan over the last couple of years, maybe that they were working to. But for him, this is, I'm assuming, just going to be an absolute bolt out of the blue.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure Devin. I'm sure Devin probably saw it coming. I'm not 100% sure what it is all down to, and if it's all on the pitch or. I know Devin had an ankle injury that he had an operation on, and maybe there's an element of that he's just not quite back to that level of fitness or that agility that he has had, and it may be a case of the World Cup. Poor bad timing of an injury. He had a poor season by its own mark last year with regard to injury. So all these things have a factor in the coach's decision. And, you know, there's no doubt the benefits of having someone like Devin on board. But perhaps he's just not quite there around the park at the moment. We're maybe carrying that ankle or something like that. Again, I'm not best placed to say. You have to trust the coaches on that one.
Malcolm, Neil here. Just a quick one for me. Like, given the nature of professional rugby, there's every chance that in a week's time after the game against Wales, someone picks up an injury. All of a sudden, I mean, first of all, are we expecting Devin Toner to be the next man in? I think a lot of us probably would. And then how awkward is that conversation from Joe Schmidt to Devin Toner where he says, look, sorry about last week, but something's after coming up. Can you pack your bags for us?
Well, I would, from my own experience in dealing with head coaches and what have you, you become used to these, and your relationship goes beyond the fact of being upset about these things. You get your opportunity, you take it. If the opportunity came next week for Devin to come back on the plane, he's not going to grumble and say I told you so, and he'll just take his opportunity, and that'll be that. Look, if you've got a coach that's been in the game or with the squad as long as Joe, obviously guys are going to get, the relationships are going to toughen as years go on.
Yeah, if we look at the makeup of the back row as well, Mal, it's CJ Stander, Peter O'Mahony, Josh van der Floor, Jack Conan and Rhys Ruddock, and Neil's just been making the points about some of the versatility between the second row and the back row, and there was a bit of crossover there as well. Jordi Murphy is maybe a player that can feel a little bit hard done by here.
Yeah, I think the fact maybe that Peter O'Mahony was put in at 7 there, just they went, well, okay, look, if we need it, Peter can push into 7 for us, and maybe the starter, who knows. So look, he does have a few options there, and Rhys is a hugely physical presence, and against England, against South Africa, against some of these big nations, you need guys who are physically can really match up to those English guys and the South African fellas.
Like, if it does turn out to be the case, Mal, that Devin Toner's not there, for example, is it, I know you mentioned about sort of you get used to that dynamic of the coach calling you in and saying, listen, this is the way things are going, it hasn't gone your way this time. Like, it's obviously such a monster tournament this time around, and he's a guy who probably won't be around for the next World Cup. How difficult is it going to be for him now to try and keep his head in the game? You may even have the scenario where he's involved in training over the next week to make up the numbers. How difficult is it going to be for him to keep his head in the game for that eventuality, like Neil was talking about, where maybe the call comes? Yeah,
it's very difficult. It's the hardest thing to do, and I can remember sitting down with Declan Kidney myself when on one of the occasions when suddenly I was no longer a starter and was going to be a bench player, and how to add value to yourself, and and Devin knows that his international career isn't over by any means. As I say, it's an injury away, so he needs to realise. He will realise that, and he just has to try and bring as much value as he can. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself out of the squad completely, and they'll bring someone else in who can. So behind it all, there's always someone else looking over your shoulder to see opportunity to take your place. So you can either be number 4 or number 5 or number 6, as quickly. So for Dev, he missed out, but he still got plenty of opportunity to come back at some stage. And when you're retired, an extra cap means a lot.
Yeah.
So he won't give up. He won't give up, and there'll be opportunity there for him again, I'm sure.
Overall, Malcolm, like just the general balance of the squad, what are your overall thoughts on it?
Well, I just think at the moment our squad is missing that spark, that it's that X factor. Can you put your finger on it? Maybe I would love to. My favorite player, I was turning into a real supporter now, would be someone like Dan Levy. I think the squad could do with someone like him, maybe like someone like Peter O'Mahony on absolute fire. we certainly have we have a strong squad, but we just need to get the guys really up and going. This match next Saturday is huge for Ireland to really look at amping up the performance again. The squad is sound. It's just about trying to get the absolute best out of them now and finding those performances. Finding their individual levels and attaining the highest manner of performance that they can.
Just one last one before we let you away, Mal. But were you surprised at all? Luke McGrath's got the nod over Kieran Marmion, who's a guy who'd featured heavily in some massive games for Ireland over the last couple of years. Yeah,
that was a hugely tight call. Again, obviously, Luke must have performed incredibly well in training. For me, Luke is a real leader. Every season he's getting better and better and better. Again, his performances, have been excellent. And again, a really tough call. But I'm excited for Luke. It's a great opportunity for him.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, Mal, thanks a million for taking the call.
Adrian, anytime, man. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Malcolm McCallie on the line there, reacting to these reports that are coming through. They're unconfirmed, as we said. We are expecting, though, that the RFU are going to release that squad in the next few minutes. So that is a big departure already from the plan, which was to do it next Sunday. Plenty of reaction coming in on these reports. As I said, unconfirmed as yet. Matt Williams has been responding to one of our tweets about it, saying that if it is factual, it is shocking. One of the best line-out callers in the world. Lots of questions here. Let's wait to see the facts. That's one of the surprising elements for me, if it is true, that Toner's a guy who's been at the heart of those calls and of our lineouts over the last number of years. Forgetting about the international experience aspect of it, where you hear all the time players saying, whatever sport it is, it takes you 10 to 12 games to get up to speed with international sport, that it's just a different level. And here we have a guy in Jean Kleyn who's coming in who has nowhere near that level of experience. He doesn't have anywhere near that level of leadership quality, I suppose, that Toner would have had given the players that he's played with over the years. That's perhaps the most surprising thing for me, that in the white heat of battle, where we're playing New Zealand or South Africa in a quarter-final, and you need somebody who's been there and done that in similar games and been able to deal with the cauldron of a game like that and the enormity of it and cope with that, where suddenly we're saying, appreciate that Jean Kleyn may not start, appreciate that if everybody's fit, Devin Toner, by the looks of things, according to this potential squad, also wasn't going to be in the mix for a starting position. But at the same time, if things are leaking and you need somebody to come on to lock it down, he's your man.
And I think what was really kind of disappointing about the whole thing was around 2017 when James Ryan broke through. I think a lot of people at the time, and I looked at the time, Devin Toner was displaced in that starting 15 and James Ryan came in, and I think most people probably went, okay, this is Devin Toner's put in a good innings, but I think he's slowly going to drift out now. We've got, the new star is here, the future is in front of us, and by the time the 2018 Six Nations came around, I think it was Ian Henderson had picked up an injury, and Toner had worked himself back into the starting 15, and all of a sudden Ian Henderson's fully fit and Toner stays in there. And I think everyone was just so delighted from that. You were like, this guy who's been around the block, he's been able to lock down his position, when everyone thought it was under threat, and just to, a year, 18 months down the line to see him missing out is really disappointing. From that injury in the Six Nations, obviously just couldn't have come at a worse time, because it pretty much took the remaining 4 months out of his season.
Yeah. So what are we starting at the second row at the moment? Are we just going with
it's Henderson Ryan?
Henderson Ryan, and who's on the bench? Is that Byrne on the bench, or do you start Byrne at 6? So was Kleyn even in a conversation about a match day panel?
Yeah, I don't think Byrne is going to start, right?
But he's your perfect impact sub.
Yeah,
who covers 5 and 6.
Yeah, it just depends. You could have a situation where Jean Kleyn is there on the bench and Tadhg Byrne is covering. There to cover both positions.
Yeah, all right. A few comments to bring in before we leave you. As I said, it is expected that the squad is going to be announced probably in the next 10-15 minutes, so keep across the off-the-ball channels to keep a track on that. But some comments that have come into us. Mr. Oliver Woods says that Farrell could have had 3 tries Saturday, except that no one was expecting him to come out of the structure, which is maybe a bit of an insult, sidewise insult there somewhere along the line. Fams Gaming says Tom Court planned a great holiday to Australia.
Tom Court, that was
for one Lions tour. The Geography 6 was the expression.
Well, he literally is from Brisbane.
Yeah, so it's all right. He's going home
for the summer.
Sam Laycock says this is a ruse to release false leaked reports to try to affect Gregor Townsend's squad selection tomorrow. Typical Irish fare. Rumble Schmidt wouldn't be surprised to see a completely different squad. I think Sam is saying that in some sort of seriousness, but anyway, look.
In fairness, the one avenue that Scotland are stacked is pretty decent second rows, to be fair, so.
Devin Toner isn't getting picked because of the potential siding, says Aaron Kieran's.
Yeah, that's a wait and see one, I think.
I'd be unsure about that. I mean, what's he going to miss? Even if, one game? Assuming you go with 6, gets 3.
Yeah, he's got a clean enough record from what I remember. He's probably looking around 3 weeks.
A good man, Devin Toner, says Sean, world class over Henderson any day. He says they're in the line out, but not around the park, says Kevin Callaghan. Only in the line out, says Stephen Murphy. Hendo stronger, says Kevin Callaghan. Dave Kelly says Rhys Ruddock could have also been a backup second row, as you made the point earlier, Neil, if needed, assuming there's a problem with Toner, which would have allowed 6 back row players. Ross Cahill asks if we're taking a risk taking 2 scrum halves, considering that Murray has been tremendous this season. I mean, a risk taking only 2 scrum halves, and presumably what he's saying, that Carberry can cover, right, if needs be a fit Carberry.
Yeah, I think they'll work.
I think that's what those are backup plans.
There was even talk of Gary Ringrose potentially dropping in at scrum half in break glass in case of emergency kind of a thing.
Yeah, all right. Well, that is a bit of a flavour of the reaction that's coming in. Obviously, there's plenty of conversation about the makeup of this Irish squad, as mentioned as well. It's just been leaked. It's 10-1 on this Monday afternoon. It's been leaked. It's been unconfirmed. We're expecting it all to come through in the next few minutes. And when that happens, keep an eye on the off-the-ball channels, because we're going to bring it right to you with the very latest of confirmed news from the RFU. But that's it for the minute. Stay tuned to OTB Sports Radio over the course of the day. offtheball.com/radio, or indeed on the Go Loud app. Up next, we've got Ian Asawa and Pat Lamb. We're going to discuss life in rugby in Auckland at one of our recent road shows. Monday Night Rugby, of course, going to have all the reaction to that squad, confirmed squad at that stage, live tonight, where we'll have full confirmation from the RFU. And all with thanks to Vodafone, our rugby coverage and Off the Ball brought to you by Vodafone. #Team of Us, #everyone in. From myself, Neil, Tom, and for the minute, talk to you later.
OTB Sports Radio.